Today, I'm speaking with former NFL athlete and life and dating coach, Keyen Lage. And he's going to be giving us the male perspective when it comes to dating, maybe shining the light on some of the mistakes us ladies make when we're in the dating pool, and giving us a different perspective. So, enjoy. Make sure to grab the official Not Over, Just Different welcome pack. It's filled with some of the best tools for inspiring your best life, all absolutely free. Just go to notoverjustdifferent.com/welcome gift to download yours now. Hi, I'm Natalie Ledwell and welcome to Not Over, Just Different, a podcast for women of a respectable age facing life's next new chapter. So grab a cup of tea and pour yourself a glass of wine and join me for some deep, real and candid conversations about everything from health, aging gracefully, relationships, and how to make the next 50 years even better than the first. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the podcast for this week. This week, I have a man on the podcast. It's very unusual, highly unusual. But the subject that we're going to be talking about today is, dating and relationships. And I thought it was very important that we introduce a male perspective to the conversation. So help me welcome Keyen Lage. How are you, darling?
I'm doing fantastic. And the pronunciation was perfect.
Oh, excellent.
So very few people are able to get it the first time. So you did it. And I'm excited to come in here and share some good, valuable information for all the female listeners, and hopefully give them some good perspective coming from the other side.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, it's not like this is your opinion and your point of view. You are a relationship and dating coach. You do work with a lot of women, and you've helped them have a lot of success. And sometimes we need help getting out of our own way. So it's great to have someone who also has a very unique take on the masculine and feminine, dance as well. Because, I think for some of us women who are, entrepreneurs who run a business or run a household, we can be very stuck in our masculine, which doesn't necessarily work well when it comes to dating and relationships. So what I'd really love to do, because I know that your past life or your earlier life, you were an NFL player. So how did you go from that into dating and relationship coaching?
That's a great question. And first thing I'd like to clarify a little bit is I don't consider myself necessarily a dating relationship coach, but what I do is I bring people back to the heart of their essence. So when they're not being who they think they should be or need to be because of their programming, whether that be society's programming or their upbringing, I connect them to their deepest sense of desire for who they are at the core, which allows them to then show up as that. And then most of the time when they show up in that space of who they are at their core, their relationships tend to get much better and more flowy. So just give a little context into what I do a little bit more. But for me, going to the NFL was a very masculine process of learning exactly what I had to do and committing to it and going all in on it. Since I was 10 years old, I said I wanted to play, and I got all the way there. Unfortunately, I had a neck injury to where I could never play again. So after that, two things really stuck out to me. The first one was, okay, I remember a feeling that I had when I got there that this is it. This is what it's like to accomplish your lifelong dream. Like, that's it. That's kind of weird. And then the second thing was, there's more to this. There's more to success, and there's more to being able to achieve at the highest level without having to force and pressure my way into making it happen, right. Which then brought me down this path of understanding what that is. And so I picked up a book called The Biology of Belief by a guy named Bruce Lipton, a legend in the field of epigenetics. And he talks about this thing called living your own heaven on earth. And I'm like, this is really fascinating. So since then, about 5.5 years ago, how time flies, I decided to dive full in on what fulfillment looks like for me at the core of who I am, separate from this old identity that I had, which was the football player. So I've tapped into being able to operate more in the feminine flow place with complementing my masculinity, as far as that being the place that I've come from in my inherent essence. Mm-hmm. And now achieving from that place with the flow of the masculine and the feminine, instead of just in the force, pressure, masculine. And so, like I said, since 5.5 years ago, I've had a hell of a journey. I've done a lot of crazy, wild things that have brought me to this moment of being able to work with high achieving males and females. But now I just do that full time when I'm not doing some underwear modeling on the side.
Right. What a life. So, yeah. All right. So from my understanding, we women can, when we're approaching dating, we do tend to make some mistakes. You know, as I say, you know, my partner, I had a dating coach as well, and he took her out to lunch and went, "Thank you so much for helping Natalie get out of her own way." But I think that sometimes when we go in and approach dating, we're going in from our mindset or from our point of view, thinking that men think the same way, and that's not the case, right?
Absolutely. I think both sexes are very guilty of this, but this is where I think a lot of the issues come from in relationship dynamics is that for sure.
Right. So how do we think differently?
Mm. Well, a big one is, and I don't want to offend anybody. This is just the truth of it. Men are much more visceral than women think because so much of attraction for women is multidimensional, at least initially, right? It's how you
Right.
feel in that moment that really determines the attraction. Whereas men, it's like, oh, damn, like, okay. And obviously attraction can pick up through the other dynamics, but it's much more visceral. And so I think one thing that women do is because they become more successful, they put more of an emphasis on their success and their ability to make money as improving their sexual value in the dating marketplace, but actually it doesn't. And so first and foremost, the looks are actually number one with when it comes to attraction for a man. And it's not being shallow, it's just the truth. And so many women can get tripped up because they think that because in their minds, what they find very valuable in a man is success and achievement. They think that same way for themselves. And so what they don't realize is that actually doesn't really raise their value in the sexual marketplace. It does in the social earthly marketplace, but we're not the same in that way. What women find attractive, which is success and money making in a man, isn't the same with men looking at women.
Right. Yeah, no,
So
I
a couple
agree.
things right there.
Yeah, I know. My dating coach said on one of my profiles, she goes, "Are you going for a job interview?" And I went, "No, but I want them to know that I'm self-reliant. You know, that I don't need their money, kind of thing." And she's like, "Yeah, they just look at that and think she's too busy for me." I'm like, fair enough.
Exactly.
But it's interesting because even when we are setting up our profiles, which you know I totally believe is one of the best ways to meet people. It is like marketing, right? And so, you know, with your photos, you do want to have photos that, you know, but that men can actually see you. You're not wearing sunglasses. You're not having hats. You're not in a photo with all your girlfriends. They actually get to see, you know, your eyes. They get to see you. They get to see a full, you know, like a full body shot or whatever. You know, are there any things that men specifically like to look at or are looking for when it comes to, you know, photos that we use in our profiles?
Yeah. So, like I said, attraction for women, you want to make sure when you see a guy's profile, you want to see, okay, not first thing being his body, but you want to see he's got some level of masculinity to him. He has a good solid friend group. So he's got pictures of friends, right? He's got the ability to travel. So he's got some pictures of his travel. He's got something that shows that he is into his work or at least a passion. And so it's important for men to have all those different dynamics to show, to signal to a woman that he's a man of value. But with women on a dating profile, as far as pictures go, that's not necessary. Most of it's showing your feminine essence and your feminine beauty rather than the whole mental process of let me show him that I have success and that I travel and that I have lots of friends. They're thinking as a woman what they would find attractive, right? Not the other way around. So it's more about being able to show yourself and your essence of your femininity and not every picture naked, but obviously showing off of what you have. And that's why it's so important to put that, I think, as a very important thing for women with getting into the sexual dating marketplace is valuing that a lot, but showing off your feminine essence and what that is and flow in those pictures is what attracts a man because a man wants to feel like he can provide and create space and structure for a woman. And when he sees that feminine essence through your profile, that triggers that inside of him, that innate primal, ooh, I can create structure to this wild, crazy, fun, feminine essence. Right. And so, whereas a lot of high performing women, they look at that as bad. They kind of like downplay that and they want to make sure they show themselves as competent and very, like you said, self reliant instead of allowing themselves to show up in this more and really the opposite of the antithesis of competence, of flow, of an absence of calculated action, of not being completely calibrated, right? Almost like a little more just like loose with that. And it's contrary to the high achieving female's mindset.
Right. And so how much should we be divulging on our profiles?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, I think some women, they'll put up a profile, they have a laundry list of what they're looking for in a guy. They've got, everything they did since they were 5 years old. Like, there's a lot of information there, but that's not necessarily what we need to be portraying in a profile, right?
No, I think it's more about being able to put good conversation starters, to be honest with you, like fun conversation starters, because a lot of it's going to be primarily what you look like. Like, I think women value much more the prompts. That's why Hinge is like, there's really good dating profiles where you can really show prompts. And I think it's important to some extent to be honest in those prompts, but making those prompts more about, can I make this a conversation starter so it's easier on this guy that's going to right or left swipe me based off my looks, right? And like your feminine essence, making it easier on him to be able to start a conversation. So both of you can really get what you want.
Yeah.
So I think it's more about, for some of the prompts, more about, okay, is this something he can play off of to be able to then feel good and make it easy to approach me? Because that's really what he's looking for.
Yeah. We all know that love and relationships are pretty common themes on this show, and most importantly, the love that we show to ourselves. And this is exactly why I wanted to share something really special with you. It's a toolkit that I've created that can help you welcome more love into your life. It features 50 empowering love affirmations and the Meet Your Perfect Match quiz that reveals your ideal partner in just seconds. So if you're ready to find that one special someone who'll be overjoyed to give you everything that you need and want in your love relationship, simply go to notoverjustdifferent.com/love toolkit and get free access now. Well, actually, my partner and I met on Hinge during COVID. And, the questions that I answered were, and the advice I got was, the only purpose of your profile is to help the man see what it's going to be like to be in relationship with you. You're like, okay, I got this. So I answered, what do I do when I'm home on a Sunday night and Sunday mornings and so forth? Because everyone's stuck at home, right? And I said, cooking a lovely steak, a nice bottle of bread. And of course, when Bert first reached out, he's like, what kind of steak?
Yeah.
So it was the perfect way to
just a beautiful man response, right? Love it.
I'm like, so ribeye, what other steak is there?
Right. But that's so good, right? You gave him such a layup, right?
Yeah.
You gave him such a layup, an easy opportunity. That's so good.
Yeah.
And then what I'd like to kind of do is I'd like to take it to the next step because I think a lot of women get frustrated in dating apps because guys are kind of clueless with how to go about courting in that space. And there's ways that women can actually help themselves with helping the guy get them what they really want.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what I hear from a lot of females is, oh, well, we're just having just endless conversation and it's just not leading anywhere. Or he's not being very straightforward and it's taking a long time to message in between. And there's this expectation that a lot of women are developing of this guy needs to know exactly what to say and how to say it. And it's not a very healthy perspective because nobody wins. When there's this like you versus me kind of operating system, it's like, oh, he should just know how to court me in this way. But most guys don't. Not a lot of guys have gone through the process of really understanding game and understanding how females work and function, which I think is important. But women can help themselves big time with first starting off the mentality of it's not like a me versus you. It's not like you need to say this right thing to get me to go on a date with you. And if you're not doing that, then goodbye. Like he's trying a lot of the times.
Yes.
Right. Like he really wants to eventually meet you. But unfortunately, a lot of guys, they don't know how and they might get nervous. So also understanding it as a female, being the sex that has much more options inherently, guys are actually a little sensitive too when it comes to that stuff, right? They don't want to be rejected. They don't want to be told no. So they also feel some of that kind of that pressure to perform and show up in a certain way. So let's give guys a little more grace in this, in that it's not like they're all just like macho masculine men that know exactly what to say. So we can look at them as more of like kind of like puppies initially, right? Like look at these guys on dating apps is almost like puppies, and being able to help communicate with them in an effective way that brings out what you really want in them, right? And so, for example, if there's a conversation that you're just talking and it's kind of just like not really going anywhere, it's just still just like continued conversation. It's saying a statement like, hey, actually, a great way to get to know me is by asking me for a coffee. Right? Or, hey, actually, a great way to get to know me is asking me out to dinner.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you're not saying, hey, let's go to dinner. Let's go to Red Steakhouse at 7:00 on Saturday. But you're setting him up to be able to understand, like, hey, dude, wake up. Let's go do something. I actually want to do something. I don't want to sit here and talk to you all day.
Right.
Right. So it's helping you help him help you in being able to say things like, hey, a great way to get to know me is actually, through this. And then that leaves space for him to say, oh, okay, well, let's do this. And then obviously as a female, you want a guy to say, hey, Saturday night, 7:00, let's go here. Right. That would be ideal. That would be completely ideal. But not every guy's able to do that. So if you do set yourself up in a way that you like a guy that you're talking to, but he's not being like straightforward and he's kind of just talking nonstop. First is that, but then if he asks you a question like, oh, what do you want? That's the biggest lady boner kill that is out there, right? It's like, oh, what do you want to eat? Right? Not a great question for guys to ask, but nevertheless, for women, as women, take a step back, take a breath, give him a little bit of grace and say, well, I like tacos, or, oh, hey, I actually like this, right? And then it gives him a little more space. I know you don't like it. It's not great in the moment, but it's helping him help you.
Yeah.
Right. To get really what both of you want. So it's not like this you versus me. It's playing that game with him a little bit, even though ideally he'd say, hey, let's not, I don't like the small talk. Let's find a time to meet. Let's go here at 7:00. I'll pick you up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Well, after the steak comment, the next question was, do you still have your Australian accent? And I said, yes. And if you'd like to hear it, you could call me.
Ooh, wow, that's smooth. Like right there. That is beautiful.
Yeah.
You set yourself up in a way that gave him a layup to be able to start conversation. And then you directed him to court you in the way that you wanted to be courted.
Yeah.
Right. That's genius. And this is gold of what we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
Right. So that is absolutely beautiful. Then from there, he's like, oh, great, I'm in. And I also really want to emphasize the fact that guys are sensitive too. And so when you say something like that, he's like, oh, she likes me. Like this is cool. Like this feels good.
Yeah.
And we're susceptible to feeling the oh, does she like me or not? Does she? Like not every guy behind the screen is just a macho player that plays girls all over the place, and they should just know exactly what to say at all times. Right. So I think that's really important. And you're a living example of what we're really talking about right now in what we're sharing as far as this process goes.
And I think too, we don't want to take it too seriously. Like we can have a little bit of fun and be cheeky in the beginning. Like, let's make it more fun. So I'd really like to know from a male perspective, what are some of the common things that women do that really don't help themselves, that guys find really challenging when they're trying to get to know, someone or try to date someone?
In regard to a first date, or in regard to like messaging on a dating app before, or
both, both. Like, I mean, I'm sure that there's some common things. I mean, we've already talked about, listing the laundry list and, putting all your job particulars and all that kind of thing on the profile. But I'm sure that also, even in that part where we're trying to meet up for their first date, and even on the first date, I'm sure. I mean, I know there was plenty of things I was doing wrong on that as well. Like I'm like, how did I ever meet anybody?
Yeah. Okay. Great. So what comes to me is like it's not cool to be difficult.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's not showing value to be difficult. Now that we're going to go back to the idea of what women want compared to what men want, and that women want a guy that demonstrates value. So in the sense of maybe he's got a lot going on. Maybe this is the only day that works for him. And maybe he's being a little standoffish as far as when he's available. That increases attraction a little bit for the majority of women, right? But it's not the same with reversed, right? So if you're being difficult to make plans with and you're doing it on purpose, because I know women that do that to try to keep him interested in the beginning, like it's just being difficult and actually leads to a high value man just kind of being like, okay, well, I'm not going to spend more of my time and energy in this space, and I'm going to move on.
Right.
And there's already kind of this mental moving on from that. So I'm not saying you have to be at his beckoning call. And I definitely would say, do not go to his house the first time that you guys meet. Absolutely not. Like if he says, hey, come over. No, do not go to his house. Absolutely not. And that's a time when you can say, hey, you can take me to, a glass of wine first out at, a place, or you can take me to coffee first. But it's being able to be open and relatively easy to making a date. If he's going to go out of his way to say, hey, Friday night at this time, if you can do that and you can make that work and you like this guy, don't be difficult.
Yeah.
Like find a way to make it work and say yes. So it doesn't add value being difficult in making plans. It actually kind of like pushes it away, because a guy that has options and that knows that he's not going to spend forever doing that with you. So I think that that's really important, is not being difficult. I've had that with making plans with girls too. And because I know what I want to do and I'm able to articulate that well. And there's almost like this like pushback. Oh, are you sure you want to do this? Oh, are you sure we should do this? It just, especially in the beginning. And it's like, yes,
yeah,
that's why I said it. Like I don't want to have this back and forth. Like it doesn't demonstrate value to me. It just demonstrates disagreeableness, which is actually a masculine trait that's more attractive for women to men, not the other way around.
Right.
So the feminine essence, it holds more of an agreeableness, but being disagreeable and hard to make plans with and rigid and have to go back and forth in that, it actually is, I would say, demonstrating an absence of value rather than a plus.
Right. And on the first date too, or when we're first dating, so high maintenance, we definitely don't want to do that. And I don't think that's an attractive trait in either men or women, to be honest with you. But let's say that, we're on the first date. What are some of the mistakes that we make, or things that show up commonly that, are a turn off for guys?
Well, I'd like to address the majority of high performing women, because I'd imagine you have a lot of them on here. And It's not necessarily a turn off to guys, but something that's a turn off to you girls that you do that you can actually not do.
Right.
So it's an easy way to get turned off by a guy that many of you very intelligent, emotionally sound women are very good at, in being able to dominate and control the conversation, in getting him on a roll with talking and asking him deep questions, which I find with a lot of girls that are very powerful and in their masculine essence. And then what happens is the dynamics flipped, and then they're now in the position of power on that date, where the guy's like, oh my gosh, yes, it feels so good just to be able to talk. And finally, someone that's able just to listen to me and to ask good questions and I feel safe and comfortable talking to. And then Lady Boner just goes, right. So being able to step back in those moments of silence and let him fill the gap in that. Right? Don't ask another question. Don't go deeper into trying to understand everything about him, but let yourself be courted. Let him take the lead in those open spaces and ask you a question, right? Because just because your brain is very fast and can compute much quicker than maybe his can in that moment, don't do it. Slow down, step out of that driver's seat, and let him do more of the question asking, right? Now, obviously, you're going to ask questions. You're going to learn about him too, but don't sit in that driver's seat of just having the whole date be him talking because you are really good at asking questions and you going really, really deep into that, because that can kill something much quicker than anything. And I can't tell you how many women that I talk to that find themselves consistently getting in that space where it's almost like they're the therapist to some extent at a first or second date that just kills it for them.
So imagine if you interview people for a living, what it's like.
Yeah.
You just naturally going, oh, and this and that, and then, you go at the end and go, God, he didn't ask me any questions about myself. But he didn't have a chance to, because I'm like doing and sometimes, and I know people who've done this, and maybe I'm guilty of it myself. You're asking so many qualifying questions in the beginning. It's like, whoa, it's like, I'm going through this test on the first date. Like, cool your jets, like, love. Like, what's going on?
Absolutely. And that on the other side for me and most of other men, same thing if they're aware of it.
Mm.
But the other guys that aren't aware of it, they'll just like, oh my gosh, it feels so good to talk because people are asking me a question. But a lot of guys that are centered and grounded in their body is they're gonna feel that dynamic flipping,
Yeah.
and they're gonna stop it or be like, okay, I don't want to be part of this. Like this is not fun for me. And now I recognize it like this, and I could say, stop. I actually wasn't done asking you the question.
Mm-hmm.
You go continue with your answer, and I can like do that.
Right.
But a lot of guys aren't aware of those dynamics happening. So help yourself in that by not sitting in the driver's seat, stepping back, regardless of how much tension you might experience in that moment, and let him lead in that.
Yes. The sitting in the feminine part of that, and not having to know everything on the first date, and being in a place where you invite him in, I think is super important, on first dates and so forth. And okay, so now we get to the part where, okay, we've been on a first date, maybe it went really well, and then there's the follow up. So should women be waiting for guys to call? Should they take the lead on that? What do you think is a respectable way to do that?
This can obviously vary with person to person, but the majority of men that know what they want, they're good at being able to take the lead. And so I think in the beginning, like before there's a first date, I think it can be really powerful for women to step a little more into that role to help a guy be able to court them correctly.
Right.
But then after that first date happens, in my personal opinion, it's more about sitting back and letting the guy come to you, because if he's interested and he is in his masculine power, he will.
Right.
Right? Like he will. And if he doesn't, he's probably not terribly interested. And I don't know your experience with that, but if a guy knows what he wants and he's interested in you, he's going to reach out again to you.
Yeah, I agree. And I think too, for women, we get caught up in I thought that went really well, and doesn't he like me? And then we go into our little story of why he's not calling back. And what we forget is there's probably a million different reasons that he's not calling back. And even if it is, he's just not into you, that's okay. It just means that the connection of the two of you, or the combination of the two of you, isn't okay. It doesn't make you a bad person or him a bad person. It just means that combination wasn't the right thing. So I think having a little bit of perspective and a little bit of, not being so, affected by every little thing that happens when you're in the dating world really does help to navigate it through in a more empowered place, I think.
Right. Absolutely. And it can be tough, because if you have a great time and you're really feeling it, it definitely can be difficult to detach from the outcome of what happens. But this is also a reality for men in the space with women, is for women to understand, is that you might think it went amazing and you guys kissed and maybe hooked up a little bit. But just because that happened, like a guy's most of the time is going to do whatever he can to try to get that. And just because he's willing to engage in sexual relations with you doesn't mean he wants to have an extended relationship with you.
Right.
And I think that's really important for women to understand. And that, we hooked up and that means he must be consistently interested. But that's where it's important for women to understand this about men, and that just because you feel like it went really well and he courted you incredibly well in that experience doesn't mean that he's interested in more of a long-term experience. Because guys get really good at getting what they want, which a lot of the times is sex as fast as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I personally, some people say girls should, if they're feeling it, to have sex in that first interaction. I personally disagree with that, but to each their own with that. But yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think because I think women on the first date are saying, okay, what's it like to be in a relationship with this guy? We're already seeing the future. We're already, we're already in the house, going on the vacations together. Right. And I think guys aren't necessarily looking that far down the road. They're looking at what's going to happen tonight, rather than we do think differently. And I think part of the dating thing that really does help is that we do understand that we don't think the same. Mm-hmm. That there is the differences there, and understanding that really does help to guard you as you go through that whole process.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so that sexual openness, most of the time that a man might have, doesn't necessarily there's an emotional connection. Whereas a lot more of the time with women, there is the sexual and the emotional element to it too. So it's not the same in that just because he felt sexual attraction in that doesn't mean he felt any emotional at all. Whereas for most women, if there is an act of sexuality, there's also some element of emotional attraction as well.
Absolutely. Well, Keyen, it has been fantastic talking to you today, and it is great to hear that other side of the story, because we can get caught up in our own stories and if we don't understand some of these basic dynamics, we can have a terrible time dating. And it doesn't have to be like that. It can be fun. It can be, a fantastic way to meet our partner. So, thank you for all of your wisdom today. Fantastic chatting with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to throw this out there too.
Yeah.
It brought up this idea in me, and that I know there's a lot of frustration on the side of women towards men, and there's a lot of frustration of men towards women. There's even like groups now of anti-women groups, and it's guys just banding together. I can't even say with a straight face. No. It's hilarious to me. But on both ends, there's this like push away because of an absence of understanding.
Yeah.
And guys have gotten hurt, girls have gotten hurt. But I would just encourage anybody, like any skill, to go into this with an open mind of really looking to understand the opposite sex, reading books, listening to podcasts, like getting experience, asking the opposite sex what things that they're interested in or how they best respond, right? Take this into your hands to really learn about these dynamics, because it's the most important dynamic that you'll ever have to understand, right? Especially if you desire to have a long-term partner. Like, don't just opt out of it. Don't just fall into the narrative that a lot of friends say to each other of, oh, screw that guy. He's just another guy like this. Like, no, don't do that. Take accountability for the things that are happening in your life, and don't just jump to, it was the man, oh, it's just the woman. But really take some time to try to understand each situation that didn't turn out the way that you wanted to, and take some level of accountability in that, and be open while you're doing that. Because I know it's easy if you get hurt to shut down and say, oh, okay, well, all guys are this way, all girls are that way. Right. But continue to stay open and take the initiative to continue to want to learn, because the last thing you want to do is have a negative association towards the opposite sex, because it's the most important relationship that you'll ever have. Right,
exactly. So, Keyen, if people wanted to reach out to you and wanted to work with you, how can we do that? Where can we send them?
You can check me out on the website, keyenlage.com, but also on Instagram, keyen.lage.
Great. And we'll make sure that those links are in the show notes as well. All right. Thanks, mate. Thank you for your time.
Yes. Natalie, thank you so much for having me on.
Thanks for joining us today. Now, if you enjoyed this episode and haven't yet subscribed to our podcast, please go ahead and do so on iTunes or Spotify, or go to mindmovies.com/podcast so you don't miss an episode. Now remember, new episodes are released every Monday morning, and we'd love to spread the word. So after you've subscribed, be a great girlfriend and pass it on to a friend who will enjoy this too. And don't forget to grab your official Not Over, Just Different welcome pack. It includes some of the best tools for inspiring your best life, all completely free. Head over to notoverjustdifferent.com/welcome gift to grab yours today. Until next time, remember, it's not over, just different.